As I thought about you guys kind of graduating, moving on, going out into the big world and using your skills to win souls, what does it mean to actually be successful? And as I started to kind of Google success and other people that we ascribe success to, you guys might find this a little bit comforting. You've ever heard of Vincent van Gogh? Anyone? Are you aware that Vincent van Gogh has had 4 paintings that have sold over $100 million? Are you aware of that? His paintings have been very successful, but did you know that in his life, he actually only sold 1 painting while he was alive? Did you know that? In fact, he was so frustrated with his paintings and so discouraged with what he did, he burnt many of his own paintings. We actually don't even have a lot of his paintings that he has because he destroyed them. And here, Vincent van Gogh, he says this: "What would life be if we had no courage to attempt anything?" You see, to try to be successful, it takes an incredible amount of courage. Albert Einstein, many of you would think of him if you think of a genius, and you think all of the things that this gentleman has given to our world in terms of physics and our understanding on how things work. But did you know that when he was a child, many people thought that he was mentally handicapped? They actually didn't really even know what to do with Albert Einstein. They thought that he had a problem, and he went on to become one of the world's most renowned physicists. Very difficult. How about Sir Isaac Newton? Here's what Sir Isaac Newton says: "My powers are ordinary, only my application brings success to them." You see, what you don't know about Isaac Newton's growing up was that he was actually going to be a farmer in his family farm. And growing up, he was a terrible farmer. In fact, his family, he failed so much at it that he ended up convincing his family to let him go to school, and hence we have the work that Isaac Newton has done today. But he began in life as a huge failure. How about the individual that gave us the light bulb? Here's what Thomas Edison says: "I have not failed. I have just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Any of you feel like that? Right? Through failure, time and time again, we find that actually something happens to us when we fail, but we need to learn how to fail. How many of you recognize this gentleman? Anybody recognize him? Harlan David Sanders. We know him as Colonel Sanders. And did you know that he had a special recipe? He had a particular type of chicken that he loved to make. And he went around to 1,009 businesses trying to sell his recipe for chicken, and he was denied every single time. 1,009 different businesses. And yet one business called Kentucky Fried Chicken ended up taking his recipe. If we didn't have these people who had incredible amount of failure, we may not have their things in our world today. Charles Schulz, he was actually a cartoonist that wrote the Peanuts, and he went to many publishing houses and tried to get his work published, and everyone laughed at him and said, "Nobody is going to want to see this." And we know that he is a very renowned cartoonist today. The gentleman that created the Dr. Seuss series, he actually went around to many publishing houses trying to publish his book called I Think That I Saw It on Mulberry Street, and it was denied again and again and again. And he kept trying, and in his latter years was finally picked up, and now the world has read them. Michael Jordan, Perhaps the world understands him as one of the most successful sports players that we know of in our world. And here's what Michael Jordan has to say. I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost about 300 games. On 26 occasions, I've been entrusted to take the game-winning shot, and I've missed, and I've failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed. You see, it's very easy for us to take a look at people in the world and say, they're successful, so it must have been easy for them. Did you know that even the world's success, they have gone through time and time again, failure again and again, and we know them because they have persevered beyond that. Here's a portrait of an American president. I'll read a list of what he is attributed to. In 1832, he lost his job. In 1832, he was defeated for legislature. In 1833, he had a failed business and went bankrupt. In 1836, he had a nervous breakdown. In 1838, he was defeated for speaker. He was defeated for Congress. He was rejected as a land officer. He was defeated for Senate. He was defeated for vice president and again for the U.S. president. Do you know who I'm talking about? Abraham Lincoln, one of the most renowned American presidents, failed again and again and again, and yet he got back up, and he is known as one of the greatest presidents our country has ever known. If you ever feel defeated, you see, we know in the Christian world what truly makes you successful. And I want to share with you this morning a few stories about this success, because I believe the world has lied to us. I believe the world, when it says you can do anything, you can be anything that you want, as long as you believe and you work as hard as you want, I believe this is a lie, brothers and sisters. Not because I don't believe that you can do it, but I believe it gives you the wrong focus. You see, the world will tell you you can be the best if you just try hard enough. But I have a question for you, brothers and sisters. What does God want you to be? You can be whoever you want to be. But when you get to the end of your road, did you become who God wants you to become? I share that with you because you know, the world will attribute whoever has the most toys. And I saw this t-shirt and it says, whoever dies with the most toys still dies. You're still going to go to the same place. It doesn't matter what you achieve in this world, you are still leaving it with nothing. And so when you look back on your life, when you really honestly get into heaven, are you literally going to look back on your life and say, God, you gave me a job to do, and I followed in the footsteps that you wanted me to follow in? I share that with you because my Bible speaks very clearly, what does it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world but lose his soul? I don't think anyone is going to get into heaven and say, I'm so glad I drove this or that car. I'm so glad I had this or that many houses. You know what? When we get to the end of the road, we're going to say, why didn't I spend my time in relationships? We talked about last night what some of the top things when people are dying, what they wish they had, and not one of them talked about money. Not one of them talked about success. Time and time again, as people died, they constantly talked about the relationships that they had or wished they had. You think about in the world's sense, I love the story of Joseph because he is a picture of what it's like to follow in the footsteps of God, even in the face of adversity, time and time again. Here is a person that was growing up, sold into slavery by his own brothers. And you'd think like, getting sold into slavery and then ending up as a slave and your life is that. He was still true to the calling that God gave him, to be meticulous in his work. I enjoyed the testimony that was told this morning about working in the kitchen and sweeping and doing the work diligently and actually finding joy in it. You know, I imagine that about Joseph as he was told to do this or that with Potiphar. He said, you know what, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. And he won the confidence of Potiphar. And literally, Potiphar's wife accusing of him something that he did not do, he gets thrown into prison. You think about this guy's life. He follows God, and time again, he's disappointed. He gets into prison, and all of a sudden, he's faithful to the prison guard. He becomes a very successful inmate at the prison. And his only one opportunity to get out of jail, he tells the prison guard the prisoner, when you get out, please mention me to the king. And of course, he is once again forgotten. Here is someone that followed God time and time again, and he was literally not honored for it until the end of his life. But God honored him and turned him into one of the most successful people in the world. You think of the story of Jeremiah. You know, as I read Jeremiah's life, it's no fun preaching a message where nobody wants to hear what you have to say. Trust me, I've been in that situation. Our ministry speaks about media all the time. It's not a popular topic to speak about when you talk to youth. In fact, I've had lots of people stand up in the middle of our presentation and literally tell me, I disagree with everything that you have to say. I understand what it's like to have people not want to hear what I have to say. But when you read the life of Jeremiah, for 40 years, nobody wanted to hear what he had to say. All of the people that were around him, his neighbors rejected him, his family rejected him, his king rejected him. In the end of his life, Jeremiah was even thrown in a cistern by all of the world's standards. You would look at the life of Jeremiah and say it was an absolute, utter failure. But we read his words today. We are encouraged by the things that God gave him to talk about with us today. And I see this as a success in God's eyes. You look at the story of Jesus, the ultimate story in the Christian's mind of utter success. But if you look at this from a worldly perspective, you would absolutely look at his life and say that was an absolute disaster. Born into a poor family, had nothing at all worthy of anything, wasn't even known as a good-looking person. All of his friends deserted him in the end of his life. No one was around him when he was being crucified that was literally supporting what he was doing. And then the thief on the cross gives him a little glimpse of hope. You see, brothers and sisters, to the world, they would look at this and say, that's an utter failure in the world's eyes. But because of his experience, we get an opportunity to have a second chance.